All right, we're back for episode 2 of our Jeep 4.0 bolt-on extravaganza. Today we're going to be going through, we're going to be doing some tune-up stuff. We're going to see if we can get the misfire to go away. We've got some plugs, wires, cap, rotor. We've got a new ignition coil. We're going to do some filters. We're going to do an oil change, a couple other things. We're going to see if we can get that misfire to go away. We'll put it back on the dyno and we will see if it picks up any power. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna go ahead, gonna unclip our air box here, and we're gonna go ahead and move that out of the way, and we can go ahead and take a socket, and we'll just remove, we're gonna go ahead and just get this thing all the way out of the way. There we go. Alright, that gives us good access here to the spark plug wires, the spark plugs, and the cap and rotor, which are located kind of down there. Okay, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try and attack this cap and rotor. And then what I'll do is I'm going to change the spark plugs just one at a time after that. I'm hoping I can kind of get in there with two caps and 2 rotors. And actually I think the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my phone, I'm gonna snap a picture of this just in case I get things crossed up. All right, back over here again, and I'm just gonna get right over top of this spaghetti mess and snap a photo. And that way, in case later when things go completely sideways, I can refer back to my picture and I'm not completely lost. I learned that a long time ago with serpentine belts. If you're ever doing a serpentine belt and it doesn't have the thing under the hood, take a picture, because sometimes the serpentine belts, there's more than one way to put the belt back on. And you'll end up being a little long or a little short, but everything else will seem right. And same thing with spark plug wires. Sometimes you think you get them back on and everything looks right, but it's not quite right. And it'll run funny, or it won't run at all. And people end up pulling their hair out. And it's all just because you get 2 wires switched or something. Look at this rotor. It doesn't look terrible. There's some carbon underneath here. You can kind of see there's some arc carbon under there. It's not the worst one I've ever seen. These newer vehicles don't seem like they chew on that stuff quite as bad as the old ones did. Or maybe the materials are better. Could be. Alright, so the rotor, real easy. It just clicks right on. That's not anything too difficult. And we're using Mopar parts here for our tune-up. We've got the cap and rotor are from Mopar. And it looks like the bottom of the cap here, we got one rounded and one squared off. So we just got to figure out how that goes on to the distributor. Probably doing this like the hardest way possible. But I'm trying not to get all confused with the spark plug wires. So if you just, go in there and you just yank them all off, which is what, your brain's telling you to do, is just go in there and just pull it all apart. Then you gotta try and figure out where everything goes. And the guy could number all that stuff down on the top of the cap and try and transfer it to the new one. Number your wires, all that. But I'm thinking the best way is just to transfer the wires one at a time. Okay. All right, so looking here, starting from our bolt here, this is going to be number 5. Oops, and we got wires popping off already. Excited. I don't want to be in there anymore. Oh man, number 5 is stuck. Oh, good. Yes. Thought I was going to break the cap off there, break the top of the cap. All right, so then we're just going to go right around in the circle, working our way around in order. Yeah, see, we got all kinds of stuff messed up here. That goes there. That one comes around, and then our coil wire, boom, goes in the middle. So here's our old cap. Man, that thing actually doesn't look too bad. We might have to hang on to that as a spare. You know how guys tend to do, guys like me that are hoarders. We don't throw anything away, especially if it looks like we can use it again. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead, make sure my cap is snugged up. Sorry if you can't see anything, you might just be seeing my armpit. But just snugging the cap up, and boom, we got our cap and rotor done. So then what we're going to do is just one at a time. We're going to do the spark plugs and wires. So I'll pull a wire off with the spark plug, match it up with the wires. The set I got here is NGK. Ooh, look at that. Wow, oh, they're numbered. So we can just pull them off one at a time, find the number, match it up, and then we'll just put in the spark plug. We'll gap the spark plug, put in the spark plug, match it with the wire, put it back on the cap, and real easy. We're gonna have this done in no time. So let me get the first one off here, and we'll get rolling on the spark plugs and wires. All right, let's start with number 6. It's hiding back here. Oh my gosh. Ah. Oh, that hurt. Hit my elbow. That didn't feel good. Took some skin off. All right. Got the wire off. So then we'll just go ahead. I need to find myself correct sockets and things here. Okay. Okay. Oh. All right. So, kind of fighting as well. I've got a. The only thing that's been done to this thing that I did to it was this coolant filter. It's just a filter that goes in line with the heater core, and it uses like a diesel engine coolant type filter, and it just helps filter out some of the trash from the cooling system. When I bought this thing, it was really bad. It was overheating. Somebody had, there was a heater core leak and a radiator leak, and somebody had put some stop leak in it, and it was really, really, really bad. And in the process of doing that, I put this filter on here. Holy cats. I don't know if you can see that, but that's got to be 100 thousandths. Yeah, maybe more. There is barely any center electrode left there. It is just a faint nub sticking outside the ceramic. These were probably due, you know, maybe 100,000 miles ago, give or take. The ceramic doesn't look too bad. Kind of some marshmallow colors on there. I don't hate that at all, but man, oh man, that's a big gap. This ignition system was working overtime. That's a lot of KVs to get that that fired off. I'm not surprised that we had a misfire. All right, let's get the gapping tool and we'll find the spec and we will gap these plugs and get the first one put in. Hang tight. Okay, so we've got our little gapping wire here. I like the wires over the blades because I feel like I have better feeling with them. Looking up there, over there, up yonder, there's a sticker right there, and it actually has the spec on it, 35 thousandths on a new set of plugs. And our wire confirms we are good to go. And I think what I'm gonna do for this back one, because it is semi-inaccessible back here, I'm gonna thread it in by hand a little bit. It's just underneath things. I think actually the one we're gonna struggle with the most is number one, because it's behind the air conditioning compressor. And it's kind of, the spark plug wire looks like it almost kind of sits up on top of it. Oh gosh, we're struggling. One of the easiest engines to do plugs and wires on. I've done some real doozies, Subarus being one of them. Let's see, what other ones are real fun? Oh, Mitsubishi, the 3000 GTs, those really are awesome. Some of the old GM products, the 3800s, those are always real fun to get those ones in the back. And I'm struggling on this one, so we'll figure. All right, well, that's either a 6 or a 9. We're gonna say it's a 6 because we don't have 9. So I'm gonna go ahead, give us a little tube of this sticky stuff. So I might try just putting a little bit of that on there. I don't want to get crazy. Just put a little dab in the boots. I think it just helps to keep them from sticking like they were, so you don't slam your elbow into the AC compressor. Alright. Can't tell if that clicked or not. If it clicked, it was quiet. Yeah, I think it's just a quiet clicker. Sometimes they really snap, and then other times a guy can hardly tell if they're clicking on there. But yeah, I guess they're just kind of, it's just kind of a quiet one. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna do a few more of these. I don't think you want to see me do each individual one unless you enjoy me smacking my elbow. But I'm gonna do a few more of these and we'll get back to number one. You can watch me struggle with one and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, we are back. We are on number one. And it's gonna be toughy. That one, it is hiding down in there something fierce. As far as Jeeps go, this one is going to be the tricky one. Actually got the socket on pretty easy. And it doesn't appear like the plug wants to break off in the head, so it's not a Ford. And we dropped the plug, but that's no big deal. We got a magnet. pluck that guy out of there. What's it look like? Yeah, it looks kind of sickly, kind of like the other ones did. But no big deal. Check our gap. Looks pretty good. And I think I'm going to use the... How am I going to get that sucker back in there? That's the real question. Might try feeding it in there with this magnet. And then kind of just dropping it in the hole. Whew. It's far down in there. See if we can scoop it with the socket. And then we got to kind of try and orient the threads so it goes into the head straight. Don't want to cross thread it. Alright, we got it started by hand. And then just very lightly. I don't know if I'm happy with that or not. Kind of is acting like it's not. Pull that guy back out. I know I went in a fair amount by hand, but I didn't think it would draw up quite that fast. I feel like it was trying to go a little on the crooked side. Oh yeah, it's not. Okay. Well, we'll try again. Pull it out of here. Take a look at it. See what the threads. Oh no, you know we did have it in there. I can see. You know, based on these threads, I can see that it was down in there a little bit. Was threading into the head. It just wasn't very happy. I'm wondering if the... Yeah, there's a little bit of rust on those threads. All right. Gonna go grab a little lubrication for this. All right. So using our flashlight in one hand. Just move that out of the way. Flashlight in one hand, socket in the other. Try and lower it down in there. Try and get it started nice and straight. All right, I think we got it now. I think I just scared myself. That feels good. We have a crush washer, this style. Some of them use like a tapered seat, like the older cast iron heads. I mean, this is an old cast iron head, I guess, but some of the old stuff use like a tapered seat. But these are they have a gasket, and the first time you put it in, it has like a little bit of squish to it, and I know you're supposed to torque these down, and you should. It's really good practice to do that. But I've done more spark plugs in my day than I care to remember. I kind of have the feel for it, you know? Muscle memory, or whatever you call it. Can't ever forget. All right, so I'm just gonna route this wire across, and I think it's gonna turn in from around the back. So this Jeep still has the little trays. I don't know if these are common or not, but usually these plastic type stuff like this, these plasticky parts, are usually long gone on these older vehicles. This one still has the little trays on it, and they're still seem like they're in pretty flexible condition. But yeah, usually by this age, those trays are all cracked and broken. But these seem pretty good. So I think the only thing that's left is the coil wire, which I'm gonna go ahead and just pull the coil wire off, because I actually have a new coil for this guy too, and I'm gonna show you why I have a new coil for it. I got a pretty good reason in just a second. Let me take a look at this stuff and I'll get right back with you. Okay, the ignition coil is much easier to get from the bottom. So I went ahead and just climbed underneath there, and there's 2 bolts that go and hold the bracket onto the block. And then once you get that out, there is an electrical connection on here. It's this little 2-wire connection right there. Just unplug that guy. But this is what I was talking about. I could see this when it was down in the vehicle. And I don't know, you can really kind of see right there. It almost looks like possible arcing. And you see this case is actually cracked. And it's cracked in a couple spots. And I think we were actually maybe even getting some arcing out of there, which might be where some of our misfire was coming from. You can see up there too, there's a couple spots. And I'm wondering if that's where, that's an original coil, it's got a Mopar number on it. But I'm wondering if that's where some of our misfire was coming from, was this coil, and the fact that it's not brand new anymore. In fact, it's cracked down here on the bolts. It's had a few hard nights, let's just say. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead. I've got this replacement. It's NGK, NTK, whatever, replacement coil. That's a little bit different design. It's not totally encased in plastic. It's just a little bit different. But I'm gonna go ahead and get that put on there, and then we'll get it put back in place, and we can change some filters. I'll go ahead and change the oil. I'm not gonna do that on camera. Everybody knows how to change oil. If you don't know how to change oil, just look on YouTube. There's 55 million videos about how to change oil. I'm gonna change the oil, the filters, I mean the air filters, just lift that out and put a new one in. I'm gonna clean that throttle body a little bit. I'm just gonna take some carb cleaner on a rag and just kind of wipe around the butterfly. Looks kind of gross. And I think that's gonna kind of conclude our tune-up. Let me get this on, I'll do that, and then we'll fire this thing up. Okay, got that coil changed. It was a little bit trickier than I thought it would be. Man, I tell you what, it was kind of buried underneath there, and they had some kind of weird bolts with some grounds on them and a bunch of junk, and it just kind of was a little bit trickier than I thought. But went ahead, I got that done. Just cleaning this throttle body out just a little bit. I'm not gonna go crazy here, but I'll just give it some wipes with a rag, get some of that shmoo out of there. Just open it up. Whew. It's dirty down in there, I tell you what. I'm not sure this has ever been done either. I think whoever owned this thing, they just like to drive it, which is fine. There's a lot of folks like that. Drive them and don't necessarily do the maintenance like should be done. And, you know, and honestly, I think that's part of the reason some of these vehicles gets so much hate, especially, you know, Jeeps. I know that there's definitely things they deserve some hate for. There's some kind of not so great engineering on some of them, especially in the newer ones. But you know, some of it I think is, you know, guys just drive them, beat the hell out of them, and they don't do any maintenance. It's a 4x4. 4x4s, especially in suspension and steering components, 4x4s, they take maintenance. You don't want to do any maintenance, you can go out and buy you like a Toyota Corolla or something. Because I had a Corolla once and we drove that thing forever. And I think the only thing we ever did to it in over 100,000 miles was a serpentine belt. And it was just because it was squeaking. Don't even know that it really needed to be done, but it was annoying. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get a wrench and tighten up that clamp, and then we're gonna fire this thing up and see if it sounds any better. All right, hang tight. All right, I think we pretty much have our tune-up done. We went ahead and changed the oil. We did our air filter. We got our cap and rotor put on, our spark plugs and our spark plug wires changed, and we put a new ignition coil on. And then I went ahead and cleaned out that throttle body a little bit. We didn't do a bang up job, but you know, we got the outside, we got the big stuff off. So let's go ahead and fire this thing up and see how it sounds. I see we still have a spark plug wire hanging out in there. Shut it off real quick. I'll show you what I see. I guess when I pulled off number one, I just left it hanging. At least it didn't get caught up in the fan. Let's try that again. All right. It sounds pretty good. It seems a lot smoother. You know, before it kind of seemed like it was chugging a little bit. Now it seems like the idle's smoothed out a little bit. Of course, it's kind of difficult to tell, you know. It's been a few days ago since we did our baseline runs. I don't exactly remember how it runs. I've slept since then. But everything looks good. Sounds pretty good. I don't hear any snapping sounds from the plug wires. Ooh, those fan clutches when they're cold. I don't know, all in all, it seems like it's running pretty good. I'm really curious to see, we get this thing put back on the dyno, if it picks up any power. I think the misfires seems like it's gone. Yeah, let me go ahead. I'm gonna get the scanner. We'll take a look at that and see if we can clear that code out if we still have a misfire. All right, let me give you an update what we're working on right now. I went ahead and ran for codes and scanned, and we didn't have any codes. We still had the check engine light, so I went ahead and cleared the check engine light in the torque app. But it kind of seems like maybe we took care of all of the misfires that it had. All right, we're back. It's another day. I got this thing strapped on the dyno already. We're gonna go ahead and start doing our pulls. I've already let it warm up for about 30 minutes. Been running here with the drum spinning, transmission, differential, everything should be warmed up. Let's go ahead and begin our first pull. Okay, something a little bit different that we're doing today. I went ahead and I set up the HP Tuner software, and we're running the scanner software, not the tuning software. This just allows us to look at the different parameters: engine speed, vehicle speed, throttle map. Mostly our one of the things I'm most interested in here is our temperatures. So we have our engine coolant temp over here. We have our air temp, the intake manifold air temp right there, and then it also gives us our spark in degrees. So we can go ahead, and as we're doing these pulls, we can see, you know, kind of what the engine sees and what it's doing with things. And also later when we go and we add the cold air intake and stuff, we can check like the IATs and see if they change at all. We can look at our trims, our fuel trims, and see if the computer tries to you know, pull any fuel out or what it's got going on. Useful software for us to just have a little bit more data when we're doing these tests. But as always, we have all the other stuff set up out there. We've got our make run screen with all of our data there, and we are up to temperature. Our timer's gone after 30 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and start a pull. And you might be able to see on there as well, I did go ahead and cleared out our check engine light. We are not seeing any more misfires, so it seems like that's going to go ahead and stay off now. So we'll keep an eye on that as well, but hopefully doing the tune-up fixed our little problem. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with run 1, 2,500 RPM. Let's see what the data says. Okay, we have it pulled up here with actually run number 3, which was the best of the 3 last time when we were all stock, and it actually looks like we're right there, right about the same power. You can see last time we got 125.0. This time we're at 123.7, 158 versus 160 torque. It really actually didn't pick up any power. You know, we're within a horsepower or 2 there, so you know, that's just probably the conditions and margin of error. Let's pull up here. We will let's display our conditions, and this will actually show you last time. So run 3 we were at 93 degrees outside. Today we're at 95, and then the barometric pressure is about the same, and the humidity is actually pretty close, and we're getting actually the same SAE correction factor at 1.03 or 3%. So that's pretty interesting. I'm actually kind of surprised that we didn't pick up any power at all fixing that misfire and you know, the coil and whatnot. I'm gonna go ahead and change this to engine speed. It's gonna look a little bit different, but same sort of information. Let's add our air fuel down here just out of curiosity. No, not really any change at all in air fuel either. Very interesting. So doing the tune-up, you know, getting rid of those plugs that had the huge gap, it really made almost no difference at all. Pretty crazy, but the data's right here, so it is what it is, as they say. We'll go ahead and let this thing sit, and we'll start getting ready for run number 2. Okay, while our timer is ticking down here, I just thought I'd show you a little bit of what we see here on the HP Tuner software during the pull. So right about there, you see the throttle goes from 20%, that's me ramping up the speed, to 100%. Our spark goes from 43 degrees down to about 18 degrees. And then our speed and our RPM start coming up. Looks like we hit just over 5,070 RPM. Our map sensor went to, you know, 95, 96 kPa. Kind of interesting though, you know, it starts up here at 95, 96, there's even a 97 in there, but look at this. As we're going down, 93, 92, 91. Does that indicate we have some restriction in the system? 90. As our RPM's going up and airflow's going up, our pressure, our vacuum is increasing. That may indicate that we have a little bit of a restriction. We can also see here, I think, got to try and remember how to scroll one-handed. So our IAT right there was at 160, but once we start the pull, it actually drops down at the top of the pull down to 145, and I guess that's just a, you know, a factor of the air moving across the sensor. You know, when it's sitting here just idling, we don't have a lot of airflow. Oh, my max limit was set at 150. Apparently that wasn't quite, let's change that to, let's go to 200. That wasn't quite high enough. I thought we wouldn't see higher than 150, but we absolutely are seeing higher than 150. So there you go. You can see it doesn't change a lot, but yeah, 162, and it drops down here to 145 as we're doing the pull. So interesting information. We can also see that our long-term, short-terms, the second we punch the throttle, goes to 100% throttle, they shut off 000, and they don't come back on until we let off the throttle. So it's going into open loop. We're going into the preset fuel maps, and the O2 feedback's being disabled, as it should when you go into wide open throttles. So all right, I'm gonna let it sit here for about another minute and a half, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do run number 2. Okay, our timer went off. It's time to go ahead and start our second run. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the vehicle, get that down to 0. All right, we'll let it go, and then we'll get it up. Second gear, get to 2,500 RPM. It almost seems like it pulls smoother. I don't know. It seems like it pulls through the pole a little smoother. And stop this. It pulls through the pole a little smoother, and it seems like it's just overall it revs better. But let's see what the data says. All right, so what we're looking at this time is actually run file number 2. It's kind of confusing, but 3 was our last dyno session, and 1 was the poll previous, so 2 is the current poll. The other thing that Dynojet usually does is the poll in red is usually your poll that you've just done. So, you know, the number very similar to last time, 125.2 and 158. I mean, that's very similar to the best pull in our last session before the tune-up. And yeah, it all looks very much the same all the way out. I can't say I see anything that's significantly better or worse. It's just more of the same. Well, let's go ahead. I'll let it cool off for about 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do our last pull for the day, and we'll get ready after that for our 0 to 60. And then I have a new test that I want to add as well. So we go ahead and let it set for 5 minutes, and we'll get ready for pull number 3. Okay, we're just about ready to start pull number 3. I just wanted to show you here our IAT. We're up to 171 degrees after those first 2 pulls. That's boiling hot for IAT. Our engine coolant temp's still only 196, but you know, our IAT and our engine coolant temp are very quickly coming together, and that is super, super hot. Just really curious when we go to a better intake system if we can get that cooled down some at all. That is boiling hot for IATs. But let's go ahead and we'll start our third pull. Get it up to speed. That run felt a little bit slower, I'm not gonna lie. Let's see what the data shows here. So we got down to 151 degrees on that pull, and everything else looks about the same. Engine coolant temp stayed right at 194. Let's get out here and check out our numbers. All right, so this one's actually going to be run file 3 in red because that's not confusing at all. 124.3, 155. So we lost just a little bit, but it actually fell right between the numbers we got for 1 and 2. So yeah, it's actually kind of started out a little bit lower power, just ever so slightly. A couple horsepower. That's not really enough to call anything. But yeah, we're right there. It just zigzags up. Let's check real quick our air fuel. About the same, not really anything too dramatic. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna get rid of, all right, so run file 3 in blue is actually the last session. I'm gonna get rid of a couple of these runs. Let's see, so our 2 highest, so number 2 is our highest. All right, a little confusing here, but hang with me, I get it figured out. All right, so run number 3 was last session. Run number 2 was our best of this session, and we can just kind of take a look here and see that very similar. If I go ahead and crank the smoothing way up, you can see that, I mean, I guess almost a horsepower more with the smoothing up, 124.9 versus 124.1, but honestly that's within our margin of error, our testing. So I would say the tune-up did virtually nothing. A new cap, a new rotor, wires, plugs. Even with those plugs, you know, with the 100,000ths gap that they had, it did very little in the way to improving our power here. So interesting. Well, I guess that's why we do this stuff. We're learning together. All right, well, let me go ahead and let this thing cool down, and then we'll go ahead and do our 0 to 60. Okay, timer's gone off. It's time to go ahead and do our 0 to 60. I went ahead, I got the laptop rolling, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop the vehicle and try and do this exactly the same way we did last time. So I'm gonna pop it in gear. Oof, all right. And then I'm gonna go ahead and let off the brake, push the gas, and start the sample all at the same time. All right, I think we're ready. Everything's rolling in 3, 2, 1. So we've got our data here. We're at 174 IAT, it dropped down to 153. First gear shift was at 4,800. And second gear, we went all the way up to 43. That was at 66 mile an hour. Looks like we hit about 68 at the very top, according to this. Interesting. Once again, you can see that map falling, you know, close to 4,600 RPM. It's really dropping like crazy. Our timing, pretty conservative, probably has a lot to do with the air temp today. It's just really hot. Let's go and take a look at the dyno and see what the data says. Okay, so let's get this set up for time, and let's go out of here so I can go ahead and get a second graph pulled up with our speed. 60 miles an hour, right at 8 seconds again. So yeah, 59.9. Yep, we didn't gain anything. Power numbers similar, 114 in first, 120 in second. Actually, let's go out of here and we will pull up the 0 to 60 from last time. And wow, I mean, it really looks pretty good. I mean, it overlays really well, actually, for having that air of me hitting the button and stuff. It actually overlays really nice. Shift happened at a little bit different speed, it looks like. Interesting, but yeah, other than that, I mean, the graphs overlay almost identically. So I think that confirms that we really didn't pick up any power. The horsepower and torque are almost identical to what they were last time. So yeah, let's go ahead. I'm gonna let it sit for another 5 minutes, and I have another test that we're gonna run. I'll explain that a little bit more when we get ready to run that test. But yeah, I'm gonna let it sit, and then we'll get right back to it. Okay, so this test that I'm adding, it's a little bit different. I'm trying to, you know, the point of doing the 0 to 60 was to try and get real world, like all the way from, you know, the very low RPM to high RPM. And I'm trying to get more information about that, like down low, lower RPM. You know, a lot of arguments online with, you know, doing the bolt-on mods is it only really adds power on the very top, and there may be truth to that. So I'm trying to get some sampling down at lower RPMs. Unfortunately, you know, it's a little bit tough. The dyno doesn't want to sample down there for various reasons, and then also we have a torque converter in here that, you know, flashes at like 2,000 RPM. So the second you hit the gas, you're already 2,000 RPM. So this last test I'm going to add from here on out is going to be like a tip-in test, rolling idle in first gear, and then we're just going to go ahead and hit the throttle in first gear, rolling idle with it already sampling on the dyno, and just see, you know, when it flashes up on the converter, what that instantaneous power and torque looks like. Hopefully that'll translate, you know, from run to run and session to session into maybe a little bit of difference at low speed or low RPM power. Maybe we can see a difference, maybe not, I don't know. But that's what I'm gonna be doing here. I'm gonna let it sit for about another 2 minutes here, and then we'll go ahead and we'll run that test. Okay, so what I did was I went ahead and I put it all the way down in first gear. We're running just at idle, and it looks like, according to our HP tuners, we're going about 9 miles an hour. And we're just gonna go ahead and start our sampling on the dyno. So we're reading horsepower and torque right now, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just put it to the floor and see kind of what it does right off idle. All right, I think that's pretty sufficient. You know, and looking at HP here, we're at idle, and we ran up to about 4,000 RPM. We're not trying to run it all the way out in first gear. I just want to see kind of what is it doing around that lower RPM band. And I can see right here, actually, looking at RPM, we floor it very quickly. It comes up and levels off right at 2,000 RPM, 2,088, 2,000, right there. You can see a little plateau where the RPM comes up real quick and then kind of levels off and becomes linear up to 4,000. That's our torque converter grabbing. So yeah, right around 1,800 to 2,000 RPM is where the torque converter's flashing on this guy. And let's go ahead and take a look at the dyno and see what the power numbers indicate. It's going to be a little wonky to see here. Just going to go ahead and do it as speed to make it a little bit easier. But we start the sampling. It's relatively low speed. I mean, it's kind of hard to... This is what I was concerned about, is it's really hard to get an idea. Like, all this down here was it's sitting at idle, and that's the horsepower that it was trying to measure. And then we floored it, and it just kind of goes goofy. We don't even really get a very good... Let me try time. Yeah, maybe that's the best way to do it time-wise. So about... I mean, that's some of the best readings yet. So maybe time is the best way to do it. But, you know, you're seeing less than a horsepower, just maintaining idle, and then right here is where we floor it. Problem is, then we don't have engine speed. So it's really kind of hard to see the low speed. Well, I mean, it kind of gives you an idea. Right here is where it leveled off with our torque converter, and then we got linear. So I'm gonna go ahead and say right here is this little shelf right here is where our torque converter flashed, and we were right at 55 horsepower and 137 foot-pounds of torque. And I guess that's the only story this is really going to tell us is, you know, we're at about 55, 57 horsepower when the torque converter flashes, and then it goes up from there. And maybe when we get some other runs with some other mods, this will help us with some better data. But for right now, it really didn't give us... I really was hoping we could do this with engine speed. I mean, that's kind of a little bit closer. So, you know, where it flashes, we're at 55 horsepower. Maybe that's not the worst. Well, we'll save this data, and then later on, when we get a couple more runs, maybe we can compare some of this and it'll make a little bit more sense. But I just wanted to try and get some lower RPM data and see if we could make sense of that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the idle quality test with our vibration meter. I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right, go ahead. This is our idle quality test we're running, and kind of seems like it's about the same peaks and valleys of 0.1, give or take. I don't remember it seeing 0 as a peak. You know, it does that little red circle that shows you the, you know, I guess the average or whatever over time. I don't remember it seeing in the last test it being 0. So it might be just a tiny bit smoother, but I wouldn't say significantly. It does seem like it runs better overall. It seems like it pulls better, but no real significant change in the vibration. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I think the overall kind of information that we gained on this one, the tune-up didn't seem like it added any power at all. Even with those plugs being gapped way out, and the cap and rotor, you know, the spark plug wires and the coil that had the crack in it, it doesn't seem like we really gained anything. Even the oil change and filter change and stuff like that, it didn't really produce any numbers. So I guess that's kind of a fail, or maybe not, I don't know. A tune-up, you got to do it anyway. So if you're looking for horsepower, unless you have, I guess, you know, a really bad misfire, worse than this one had, I don't really think you're going to gain a lot, at least not according to the data that we got here. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. If you like more of this stuff, go ahead, like, subscribe, and then I think the next round of testing, hopefully we get that done next week. We're going to go ahead and start, I believe, with the cold air intakes. We've got a Windstar cowl intake setup, and if it shows up on time, I may even have a surprise for that. We'll just have to see if everything gets here on time. We got a few days before we need to shoot that one, so hopefully everything will be here. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for watching.